The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick, your host of Firearm Mentor. And if you've listened to my episodes in the past, you know I'm kind of like the king of dad jokes. So if you thought this episode might be a little fishy, you would be correct, because we're going to be talking about water safety and fishing safety and boating safety in this episode. A couple of weeks ago, I took my son on a fishing charter. I actually was going to take him several months ago in June when his birthday was, for his 17th birthday. The kid loves fishing. So I booked a charter, but Mother Nature did not cooperate, and the charter was canceled because of inclement weather. And that'll be explained later on in the episode. So my son went out of the country for the summer, and he returned. I rescheduled for a couple days ago, or last week. And we went out on Lake Michigan, and it was absolutely a tremendous, fabulous experience, which we'll tell you about now as we go into some of the safety protocols that happen when you're on the water. Off the air, I did interview my son to ask him some questions about fishing, and he mostly does bass fishing on interior lakes, typically within a half an hour from the house. And he's got one main fishing buddy. A lot of his friends are interested in fishing, but there's one guy that just rises to the top. And he and my son go fishing. As a matter of fact, as I'm recording this, they're out fishing right now. I said, what's your plans for the future? What do you want to do regarding fishing? And he wants to buy a kayak to fish on interior lakes while he's in the kayak. I don't know if he realizes that, but you have to be super flexible to be in a closed kayak. I was in one once, and my legs, I do not have the flexibility I needed. So I would need an open kayak. But that's what he wants to do. More power to him. We talked about safety and that he should be going out if he's in a kayak or any activity, really, where there's an element of risk. He should be with a friend in case he runs into trouble or in case the friend runs into trouble. Things happen. I asked him, I was like, how big is the biggest fish you ever caught? And he asked me, well, before the trip or after the trip? I said, before the trip. The largest fish he ever caught on an interior lake was a 4-pound largemouth bass. He's also caught a 3-pound smallmouth bass. And what he tells me is that in tournaments, a 5-pound bass wins an award from his perspective. I don't know how true that is, but I will have to go with it. So he has he has caught a 4-pound fish when a 5-pound is the one that gets to be competition. I think that's pretty good. And most of what he does is catch and release. So I call that kind of baloney fishing, because who wants to catch something and not eat it? I'd like to eat it, unless it's not a nice fish, or not a tasty fish, I should say. I wanted to know how often he went fishing, and he basically goes whenever his spare time allows. The kid also works in the restaurant business, and he's still on summer break. He starts working, by the time this airs, last night will be his first day back at the job. But he does like to fish. He tries to go at least one time a week. Sometimes he goes more than once a week, and depending on the weather, it might be less than one time a week. But he loves it, and his dream catch would be a tuna. And I was like, what, like a 600-pound tuna that we see on Wicked Tuna and all these other History Channel shows? And he's like, no, I'd rather catch like a 20 or 30-pounder. That's my dream fish. And so I kind of made a side comment. I said, well, you can't do that in Lake Michigan. And he smirked, because it's a saltwater fish and Lake Michigan is unsalted. I'll let that sink in. So he just came back from Israel. He was on a trip of a lifetime, and actually went on this boat trip, at least of a lifetime. We're going to do a repeat performance because it was such a blast. He came back from Israel. He wants to fish in Israel because they have several different species of fish. And I think it's great. More power to you. So I said, why do you like fishing? What's the deal with fishing? And he said to me that he has a lot of stress everyone has stress in their life, but I asked him what his stressors were. And his stressors are, he's got to select a college. He knows he's very, very focused. He knows he wants to go into engineering. But he said, I'm making decisions now as a young person and these decisions will affect the rest of my life. So he feels some pressure there. He's in a very good spot, very good grades. He's going to get into the school he wants. The question is going to be aid, scholarships, grants, that type of thing. That'll determine where we can afford to send him. But the kid is brilliant. I think he's a senior, and I think he maybe got 1B the last 3 years, and one of those years was the year of the pandemic. So he did some remote learning and still excelled. So I asked him, why do you like fishing so much? And this is what he told me. He said, well, with all that stress, he loves the peace. He loves the escape. He loves the relaxation. Now, our fishing charter was not relaxing, and I'll explain it. It was exciting as opposed to relaxing. But he wants to hang out with his friends and just chill, as the kids today say. That's why he likes fishing. The other thing is his grandfather, his mother's father, loved to fish, and he would take the family fishing. We typically went to Montrose Harbor, but he, rest his soul, rest in peace, he passed away. So the kids don't go fishing with him anymore, and this was several years ago. So my son was kind of young when we went fishing with him. One of those memories was that we're at Montrose Harbor, we're casting, we're fishing, and a mussel got caught on his hook, like a mussel as in like a clam or a invertebrate. And that's what he caught, a tiny little quarter size mussel. So that became the joke of the family. Now he loves to fish. It is kind of a tribute to his grandfather. He uses his grandfather's poles and equipment, although I did buy him a pole last year for the holidays. But he's got the tackle box, everything that Grandpa used, he uses. And it warms my heart that there is a family history, family tradition that is handed down from both sides of the family. My traditions are different than his mother's traditions, which is perfectly fine. It's all positive. I'm very touched that he can continue on a terrific tradition that he's most likely going to pass along to his children when they are old enough. He also made a really funny comment. He said that Grandpa smiles down on me when I catch a fish. He's constantly thinking about his family and his past, and again, it warms my heart. He described our charter as, quote, absolutely amazing, and I have to agree with him. He looked into the cabin, and we'll explain the boat when I interview Jim, the captain, at the second part of the episode, but we looked into the cabin of the boat, and there were thousands and thousands of lures. I mean, thousands. I'm not exaggerating. The cost of just the lures and the equipment on the boat had to be tens of thousands of dollars in addition to the cost of the boat. So it wasn't like, oh, they went and they got a little thing of worms at Walmart and we went out, oh, let's see what happens. No, these guys knew exactly what they were doing. It got him excited. It was a new experience for him, the one that he wants to repeat. So I asked him, what surprised you? And he said he was so surprised that the charter knew exactly where the fish were going to be. We went right out. We started to get bites very immediately. Actually, the first fish that he caught, it was his, was a 21-pound Chinook salmon. And I don't know if a listener has ever tried to reel in a large fish. It is not easy. So I asked him, how hard was it to reel in his first fish, first real fish, quote, real fish. He's told me that his hands were blistered, his muscles are sore, he had a whole body workout. It was exciting. He had adrenaline flowing through his veins, and he was very surprised at how hard it was to reel in that big fish. But once, I'm going to make a pun here, once he did it, he was hooked. He loved it. We ran multiple poles off the sides of the boats. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, I'm going to insert some video and photos of him. And, well, he didn't actually turn on the camera when it was my turn, but he held the camera. It wasn't recording for me, which is okay. So I have multiple photos and footage of both him and I reeling in fish, and it was a lot of fun. Once he reeled in that 21-pounder, it took him about 15 or 20 minutes, and he thought it took forever. But the thing was fighting, and he said he loved seeing the fin pop out of the water. It actually looked like Jaws. The top, I don't know if it's called the dorsal fin, was out of the water. And he said the fish just kept getting bigger and bigger as I got it closer to the boat. And when he finally got it hauled in, the first mate Ryan helped him with a net. He just looked at it and he said, "Holy cow." Now, the actual words he said was holy, and the second word he said, I can't repeat on the radio. He was just shocked. He said, "I never would have caught that on my own." I asked him, I was like, "What did you like most about this?" And he said that it was a new experience, and he's used to just casting and reeling in, casting and reeling in. And really, that can get boring. But for me, the trip wasn't about the fish. It was about the company. He also said that we did a lot of trolling, and that's when you set out lines on the boat and you basically go at, I don't know the right term, but idle speed. So we're putting along. The lines are moving as if bait is swimming. And with multiple poles, it was very interesting. It's not the nylon string, they're copper wires because these fish are so tough. If you used a traditional nylon reel, it would have snapped. These fish were amazingly strong, and plus we're pulling them against the speed of the boat, which adds additional difficulty. He said to me, it's a new type of fishing. Usually, I cast, I go slow. This was exciting. So I said, "What did you like least about the fishing trip?" And he said, "Leaving," which I thought was very funny, but it's true. He said once we hit the limit, he was kind of disappointed. It's a 5 fish per person limit. There were 2 of us. We had 14 fish. Oh my goodness, how could you do that? You broke the... No, the captain and the first mate count as far as the fish go. So we could have gotten 20, but it started to get a little bit rough out there, and it was time to go home. We had plenty of, as you'll see on the pictures on the YouTube page, plenty of fish. I estimated that we brought in approximately 100 pounds. The fish were about 150 pounds, but about 100 pounds of fish. If you went to the grocery store, you could buy farm-raised salmon for about $7.99 a pound. With 100 pounds of fish, we brought in about $800 worth of fish, and the charter didn't cost anywhere near that. So we were able to feed our family. We gave the fish away. We were told how to freeze it and preserve it, and that'll come up when I interview the captain. But for now, we're back at what did my son like least, and he liked least the limit. He wanted to keep fishing, but I understand. And he was tired. He said it was harder. The more fish we caught, the harder and harder because he was fatigued. But it was just an absolutely wonderful experience. And he is a senior in high school. He's looking at colleges, and he wants to be an engineer. And we talked about traditions a few minutes ago. My father was an engineer. There's a little bit of a tradition on my side of the family that he's pursuing, and I think that he can marry the two. Because I suggested something to him that never occurred to him before. I said, "Why don't you become an engineer and see what's available in the fishing industry? Maybe you can design bait, fishing poles, boating equipment, electronics. There's so much out there with the fishing industry that you could really not have to work ever, because if you love what you're doing, you never work." And his eyes lit up, and he says, "That's a good idea. I'd love to be able to work for Rapala, Strike King. There's a ton of other fishing brands, so if you work for a fishing company, let me know. My electronic business card is firearmmentorcard.com, and I can introduce him to you, even if there's an internship available." Yes, I'm plugging for my son. But back to fishing. It is his passion, and he would be able to marry the two traditions, the tradition of being an engineer and the tradition of fishing, and really carve out an awesome career for himself. So what kind of final thoughts do you have for the people who are listening? And he said, if this is your interest, do it. Save up some money, go on a fishing charter. Jawzon's information will be later on. That's the name of the fishing charter. If you Google Jawzon Fishing Charters, they're out of Waukegan Harbor, and their boat was absolutely amazing. It was 30 feet long. There were 4 of us, so 2 crew members, my son and I, and he takes out up to 4 people at a time. 4 people probably would have been crowded. He could take out 6, but he said 4 is the sweet spot. My son said, if you're interested, live life. Go, experience it, do it. Growing up, I went to South Haven, Michigan almost every summer. In fact, my family's been going there for at least 105 years. And South Haven is in Michigan. It is a port town. It is a beach town, a resort town. And my father used to go there when he was a child. What would happen is the entire family would get on a ferry boat that would go across the lake, and he and his grandfather, whom I was named after, Morris, he and Grandpa Morris would drive around the lake in a 36 Chevy coupe. I have pictures of him, and that was his first car. He got it from Grandpa. I have pictures of him with the 36 Chevy. It's just a neat, interesting car. And that way the family would have a car there. And when I went there as a kid, so how do I know the 105 years? The oldest evidence that I can find is a photo of my great-great-grandmother, and it's labeled, that's how I know, in a rocking chair, and the back of the photo is written on, and it says South Haven 1917. So that's as far back as I can trace our family. Part of our family's been in the United States since before the Civil War. So we have a long American history and tradition. With that said, there are tons of fishing charters in South Haven, and that town really catches a lot of perch. I never went on one. I try to live my life without regrets. I don't really regret not going on one, but that would have been a fantastic opportunity with me and my father, which I didn't get. So now what I can do, though, is I can have this annual tradition with my son. We can go out and do the fishing. And I'm looking forward to eating a lot of fish, and I'm looking forward to continuing to spend time with my son. It is just a terrific, terrific experience. So a funny thing happened to me today. I happened to be on the security committee of the house of worship that I attend. And my role there is consultant, and really it's an active shooter response trainer. So I run drills, Sunday school teachers, the staff, the congregants, the sisterhood, the men's club, all these different interest groups, and I run the active shooter response training. And earlier today, my religious leader called me, and he asked me, where did you go and get all that fish? He loves to fish. He does the inland stuff, cast and reel in, cast and reel in. And he asked if he could go with the next time we go fishing. And I said, you absolutely have an invitation. It would be an absolute blast to be on Lake Michigan with him because he's just such a nice guy. I always have a ton of respect for people who adopt children, and he has an adopted daughter who is absolutely darling. And just, it takes a special person to adopt a child. It takes a special person to be a step parent. And I've never adopted a child, but I'm a step parent and I learn every day. So stay tuned, because up next, we're going to have Jim Stepp from Jawzon Fishing, and we're going to get his perspective on history on fishing. Stay tuned. Before we continue with the interview of Jim Stepp from Jawzon, I wanted to have 2 updates that I want to share with everyone. First of all, the Tom DeVore lawsuit, the temporary restraining order that allowed people who were named in the lawsuit to purchase banned items, is pretty much dead. The Supreme Court ruled that his argument was not enough and that the ban is still constitutional. The thing to note is that the DeVore lawsuit focused on equal protection, meaning the law applies to some people in some way and other people in other way. For example, if somebody is a nuclear security person, they can purchase banned items. However, the regular population cannot. So the Supreme Court ruled against Tom DeVore. He's planning, from what I've heard, to take this up to the federal Supreme Court, but for now, the ban is upheld. That doesn't mean the fight is over. That just means, based on his argument of equal protection, it is not unconstitutional. The other lawsuits are focusing on the Second Amendment as opposed to the equality phrases, and we're still in the fight. We still have a dog in the fight. So that's the first update that I wanted to share with everyone. The second one is that next Saturday at Buffalo Range Shooting Park in Ottawa, Illinois, is the 2023 Summer IGOT Shoot at the Pit. And if you remember, IGOT stands for Illinois Gun Owners Together. Starts at 10 a.m. in Ottawa. Feel free to come earlier. They open at 9 and they stay open until 4 p.m. The admission price is $30 for adults 18 and over. 17 and under is $15 and vets is $25. Friends, families are welcome. Minors and new shooters should be supervised. I will be there. I know I'm helping someone's son learn how to shoot, and you don't have to be a member of IGOT to participate. Anyone, it's open to the public. So here's what Buffalo Shooting Park has. It has the pit, which looks like a rock quarry. You could bring all sorts of junk, old monitors, deflated basketballs, any junk you want to shoot at. Last time I was there, I brought a basketball because it was orange and I could see it from far away. So I brought that. I'd shoot it. It would roll a little bit, or I'd shoot next to it. It would roll. It was like shooting cans off a fence. All right. So what do they have? They have the pit. They have pistol ranges up to 20 yards. They have 20, 50, and 100-yard rifle ranges. They've got a trap range, and they've got a 22 plinking range with spinners. So you'll hit something with your 22, it'll spin or hear an immediate ping. Most personal firearms are welcome, but nothing in BMG is allowed. And since nothing needs to be registered until January 1st, we should be good with our semi-autos, but don't show up with loaded magazines. That would be a violation of the law. I don't want anyone to get in trouble. The pit provides full auto rentals, and you're actually not renting the firearm, you're renting the magazine. So the firearm rental is free, the magazine and ammo is not. They do have a little hut with burgers, hot dogs, brats, that type of thing. Or you can bring a cooler, you can bring a grill, whatever you want. You can bring your own food. There's real bathrooms inside the check-in store, and there's bathrooms near the concession stands. IGOT t-shirts will be sold as a fundraiser, and a $5 donation for each piece of apparel will be donated to the lawsuits. And of course, if you'd like to donate more, you can do that. So I hope to see you at the pit. Please come up to me. Please introduce yourself. I have tons and thousands of people that I have outreach to. So just say hi, my name's Mike, or whatever your name is, and I'd love to chat with you. All right, so we are going to have Jim Stepp, and he is going to talk about Jawzon fishing. I have with me Jim Stepp, captain of Jawzon Charter Services. Several months ago, I attempted to book a fishing charter for my son's 17th birthday. Unfortunately, Mother Nature did not cooperate, and it had to be canceled. He went out of the country for the summer, and when he came back, I was able to rebook with Jawzon. So, Jim, thank you very much for taking the time to be interviewed on the radio show.
Thank you for having me.
You have a very interesting backstory. I know you didn't start as a fishing charter captain, but can you go into your career and how you got to be a fishing charter captain?
Well, when I was a young man, we grew up in Waukegan, and my father, he was definitely a fisherman. And he worked local 150. He was a crane operator. So whenever it sprinkled or it rained a little bit, they didn't have to work. So I'd get the call from the principal or the person at the school, Jim Stepp, come to the front office, and I run to the front office, and my dad would go fishing. 90% of the time, we fished Lake Michigan. We were at Waukegan. Waukegan Harbor was right down the street. We had a trailerable boat, and we went down there a lot. We fished out of Lake Michigan a lot. I've been fishing out there for now 57 years, and I have never took a year off of fishing out of Lake Michigan.
You must like it.
Yeah, you know what? As you've seen when we were out there, it's a lot of fun. There's some excitement involved, and it's a puzzle. It's a big puzzle. I love puzzles. It's a puzzle trying to put the program together, how to find a fish, how to catch him, and obviously put some stuff in the cooler.
Well, it warms my heart to hear that your dad pulled you from school.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
And I say that because my mom was a teacher in the school district I grew up in, and she would pull my sister and me one day a year in the spring when it got nice out, and we would go to the beach, museum, picnic, do
Sure.
something with the family, and look at you today.
Yeah.
Did missing that one day of school really affect you?
Yeah, well, many
No.
days at school, but sure, no, it didn't affect me.
But
As my story will probably go on here, and I'll tell you about the rest of my career, as we say.
very good.
I
Continue on.
went to grade school, and everything went through there. And then when we got out of 8th grade, my friend's dad owned an auto repair shop. And first I started cleaning up and doing some stuff, and I really liked the auto repair side of it. I started working on cars. Next thing you know, I was within the 2 or 3 months we had off there for summer break. I started working on cars a little more and got better and better. And I went back to high school. In the second week of 9th grade, I said, you know what? I'm going back to work on cars. I found my niche. So I never did finish high school. But I was just one of those lucky people that did not have to go to school to learn auto mechanics and make a great, great living and a great career out of it.
Did you ever go back and get your GED?
No, sir, I never did. I never had time.
Look how successful you are.
Wow.
Wow.
Schools that I went to was for auto repair.
Okay, and that was my next question. Did you go to auto stuff?
Anything that dealt with auto repair, I was going to. Triton College was a big one of them. The auto parts stores back in the day would sponsor a tech, and they would pay for your tuitions. And I was lucky enough to get 2 of those sponsorships. Some guys seen it in me, and I was able to go to Triton College without having a high school education, and was able to go through those classes and get even better at my trade.
I am thoroughly impressed at how successful you are.
Yeah, because it really worked out. One day, I was working on a gentleman's car. He called me up, and it was his dad's car, and I think it was in 1991. I was working on his father's car, and he had it at the dealership 4 different times for a stall-out problem. And the car was brand new. And he called me up, and I went over there, and I looked at the car, and I thought about it for a while. Went home that night, thought about it some more, and it hit me right in the middle of the night. I went back the next day, and I fixed that car. Well, it was a friend of mine. He was an auto mechanic also. And his dad came to me and says, Jim, he says, I never seen anything like it. If you ever want to start an auto repair shop and you want to start it with my son, I'll fund you.
Folks, when we return, Jim will go on and explain how he got to where he is now, and we will cover some boating and fishing safety. Stay tuned. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.